Hello game designers, this is Mr. Sparks and welcome back to video number 4 that we're going to be doing in our RPG project. So I spoke at the last one that we were going to add a landscape to this one, so we're going to do that first and foremost, and I'll have the landscape file posted for you so you can access that. We're also going to be going back into our game mode and setting up our respawning system. And so we'll do that, and probably pretty much do that in this video, and in the following video we'll be setting up our user interface. We'll see how this one goes. If it's not too lengthy, we may go ahead and set our user interface up as well in this video. So we'll go ahead and get started. So have your project open here, and the first thing we're going to do, if I'm in my RPG project right here, I'm going to create a new folder called Maps. So just going to right click, choose new folder, let's call this Maps. We're going to create a new map. We may have more than one, but for now we'll just need this one. So we're going to create a new level, so we're not going to use this one. We're going to use more of an open world type setup. So we'll just have one that I've created. It's fairly simple. Let me show you how to create your own at a later time. So what we do to create a new level, the easiest way is to go up here to your file menu and go here where it says new level, and you should get this option right here. We're just going to choose the default one right here. This one we'll be using these at a future time when we're doing our main menu and things like that. So we're going to choose default, and it should load our new map up here in just few seconds. You kind of have just like a sky sphere and just this blank platform with some lighting and a player start. So first thing we need to do is go ahead and hit save current so we can save this map, and make sure you navigate into this RPG folder here and then into your maps folder, and we're just going to call this is actually like a little valley, so we're going to call it valley. Okay, make it simple. So we're going to first of all click on this platform here and just delete that because we don't need that platform. Now to get a landscape, we're going to go up here to the modes section, and if you click here you'll notice it says landscape. So we're going to click landscape, and once you do that you'll get this green grid that pops up, and then you'll have the landscape tab is over here on the left hand side. So what we're going to do first of all, we're going to import this one from a file. You could create a new one and you could design your own if you like. If we just created it straight from now, it would actually just be flat. So we want to have a little bit of structure. So that's why we're going to use an imported file, which is called a height map. A height map basically is a white to black map that has gray in between, and it uses that data to actually create a terrain. So black being the flat areas and white being the mountain areas. So we're going to go and want to import this, show you how to import it. So if you go to import, and you would navigate to where you downloaded your file that we're going to use. So I'm going to go here, and this file here, what you will need to do if you download the zip file, you'll have to extract that out. And then this is the file you're looking for, this R16, and it will be the only one that you can find, the only type. So this one is actually a bigger version of it, but we're going to use a smaller version for now. So we're just going to click this one, and you hit open, and it will be, the resolution is like 127 by 127, and we may get into that portion of these things a little bit later. Okay, for the material, I'm going to go ahead and give it a material so it's not just a plain gray material. And so if you click here, you can type in grass, and you should get this ground grass material. So this is the material that will apply to it once it actually posted in. So a couple of things that we want to do. The location here is 0, 0, 100, 100 being it's 100 units or centimeters above our origin point. So we're just going to change that to 0. And I'm also going to change the scale on the Z, because if we leave this at 100, it will be everything will be really vertical. So we want to change this to about I think about 10. So we'll do about 10 on this, and this will actually flatten this out much better. We can always adjust it if we want to once we get it imported here. So that's all you really have to do. And so when you click import, it will import this landscape in, and you'll notice that it's there. And if you notice and don't click on anything, or you'll actually be sculpting your landscape. So there is a way to sculpt it. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and close this out. So we'll just go to this landscape, and we'll just go ahead and close that out. So now we have a nice little valley looking area, okay, with green grass on it, okay, with one big tall mountain on it, okay, and you can see here's the little valley that goes in between. All right, so if we were to click this here, and here's where you can actually adjust your scale accordingly. So let's see, we need our player start. So let's see where our player start's at. One quick way, you see our player start is way up high here. So to get this down on the ground, if you select your player start, that's what we want. So player start here. This is where our player will start. If we go ahead and hit play now, we would just spawn way up here in the air, and that's really not what we want. So if you press the END key on your keyboard, that will snap your player start down, or it should. There we go. And so now, if I were to hit play, I should spawn right in that location there. So, and sure enough, there I am. So you can see this is a fairly decent sized landscape. It'll be plenty big enough for what we want to do for now. Okay. So to find your player start quickly on your screen without having to search around, if you click it here and then press F on your keyboard, it will just snap right to where it's at. Okay. So we want to add a few extra spawn points. So as we do our spawning, this will help. So we're going to hold the Alt key down, and we're just going to drag a couple of these over. So we'll drag one over here. Always a good idea to just kind of raise it up and hit end, and that will snap it back down. And that is END, not the N letter, but the word end. So we'll do one there. Hold Alt again. Let's make about, I'll put one maybe over here somewhere. Nope, not far enough over. There we go. And we'll make one. We want enough of these to be obvious that we're not, and if you're underneath the ground, you will actually spawn under the map, and you don't really want to do that. So this is just for testing. We may change these around later. Move here. So you put them pretty much wherever you like. So create yourself about 5 or so. And now we have multiple player starts. Okay. So we'll go ahead and hit save all. Just to be safe, we did a little bit of work. So we always want to save, and we hit play. And now we're spawning over here. So our extra player starts are actually working from our possess selected character function. Okay, so that's all we need to do for our map. Get that taken care of, and then we'll jump back over here, and we'll go into our blueprints, and let's go and open a couple of them up. So we'll open our base character up, and in here, if your player damage function is not currently open, go ahead and open that up, and we're going to go here into our true, or actually our false, and we're going to change this here. So we're going to be working in here in just a few minutes. First thing, you also want to go and open up in your game modes, open up your RPG game mode. So go ahead and open this one up. If you get this screen, go ahead and click this blue link here. That'll open this up. And what we need to do is we need to create a function in here that will allow us, we don't need the event tick, is we're going to create a function in our game mode that will allow us to possess the character that we're going to select. So a couple of things we need to do is if we click class defaults here in our game mode, and right now we have our base character as the default pawn. So we want to change that to none. Okay, so when we create this will work. So when we create a player selection option is we can pick any character that we have available, and we will use this function to actually spawn it instead of the default. So you got to make sure you change this to none, and then we will set up this particular function. Okay, so to set up a function, we're going to go right here on the left hand side to the function section, and you'll see a little plus right here. It says function. So we add one. It opens up a new graph for us with the function name, and we're going to give it a name here called possess selected character. Okay, so that's going to be our name, possess selected character. Okay, we will need one input. So to add an input to a function, this will allow us to pass information into this. So we're going to go over here and we're going to press parameter, and we're going to say, call this parameter selected character. Okay, now the type is just like variable, so this actually is a variable type. So we want to decide what variable do we need. In this case, we're going to need, we will search for it. So we're going to say base character, and we should get this here. This is our base character, and all of our other characters will be children of this one, so this will work. We're going to say, well, base character class reference. Okay, so it should be the purple option. That will allow us to select a class. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, and we'll not be using this yet until we create our character select screen. Then we'll come back into this function and we'll plug it in. For right now, it wouldn't work properly if we plug it in where it's supposed to go. Okay, so we want to just randomly select one of those player starts that we had over there. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to drag off of here, and we're going to say, we're going to look for a function called get all actors of class. Okay, so we're going to get all actors of class, and the class we're looking for is the player start. So here we go. This is the one we want. So we start typing in player start, and make sure that you do this or this will not work properly. Okay, so what this does is creates an array of all the player starts that exist in the level, which we have 5 of them. So it would go and it would find all 5 of them. It would list them inside this function here in an array setup, which allows us to hold multiple values. So to figure out which one we want, we're going to drag off of this pin. It says out actors, and say get. Okay, and you should see under the array category get a copy. So this will get one of these, and these are kind of listed from 0 down to however many there might be. So we have 5. These would start at 0 and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So anytime you're doing programming, this is 0-based counting. So 0 is actually the first element that would be included in this array. So if you had 5, you would subtract 1 from that to get the total number that you needed. So we're going to make sure that we get we're going to get exactly how many we have, no matter how many of them we have. If we add more or delete them, this function will always work properly for us. So we can drag back off of the out actors again, back in this direction. And when we let go, we can say last index. So this will be the last index. So it will go through, it will go 0. In our case, the last index currently would be 4 because we have 5 player starts. Okay. So we're going to go from this integer value here, so it knows which one of those that it needs to pick, and we're going to say random integer. So this is an integer or whole number, so random integer in range. This is what we want. So we want a range of integers. So the minimum would be 0, which would be our first one, and the last index could be our max or the last one. So we can just plug those in together. So it will pick a number anywhere from 0 to whatever this last index value is, and then that's the one that it will select. Okay. From there, we're going to, just in a minute, we're going to drag off from here, and we're going to say spawn I can spell spawn actor from class. Okay, so once we find one of these, we need to spawn our character. And for now, we would normally pass this information here into here, and that's the one it would select. But since we don't have more than one yet, we were just going to select the base character. Okay, so we're just going to tell it to pick the base character for now. All right, now we do need a spawn transform to tell it where to spawn this character at, and we're going to spawn it where one of these player starts are. So what we need to do from our get here is say get actor transform. Okay, so here at the bottom we say get actor transform, gives us an orange output, and there we go. So what a transform is basically it just goes to where the player or this is in the world, and it picks up the location XYZ and the rotation that it is rotated in, and it also will pick up any scale value. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do once we spawn our character in, he's really not going to do anything yet because we have to have our controller take possession or take control of this character so that we can use it. So to do that, we're going to look for a function called get player controller. Okay, so get player controller will allow us to get the controller that is going to control that we're using with our keyboard and mouse, or a controller or whatever process we're using for our game. Okay, and what we want to do from there is we want to say possess. So we want to possess, and you can unpossess. So if you have a place where you can select different characters, you could use this process to possess and unpossess different pawns. Okay, and you do have an input here that says in pawn, so it needs to know which pawn do you want to possess. So we're going to take the return value here, which says base character. We're going to tell it take possession of our base character. Okay, once it's spawned. All right. So that will allow us to have control over this character. The next thing that I prefer to do is to drag off from our get player controller and say input mode. So in this case, once I take possession, I want to set this input mode to game only. What this will allow us to do is to immediately start playing without having to click the mouse to get control. That's kind of a default in the editor. So we don't want to have to do that to click before we can actually move, so we just want to be able to start moving immediately. So this will set this to that particular part. And the last thing we want to do, just to make sure, is we're going to say set show mouse cursor. So we want this set show mouse cursor variable, and this will govern whether or not the mouse cursor actually shows on the screen or it doesn't. So in this case, when we're actually playing, we don't want to use the mouse, so we want the cursor to be hidden. If we have we pop up a HUD or an inventory screen or something like that that we need to interact with our mouse or our cursor for some reason, we can always tell it to show it then. So for right now, we want to turn it off. And the last thing we need to do on this function is to say return. Okay. And if you remember what a return node is a little thing here says the node terminates the function's execution. Okay, and it returns its output parameter. So this is it's going to terminate this. Once it sets this, it's going to terminate this function and it's going to move on. Okay, so we'll quickly compile that and we can close this for now. And what we want to do for now, when our game starts under begin play, we want to drag our possess select character function out here, and we just plug it in. Okay, so now what should happen if we test our game is we should spawn our character, and then we should actually be able to take control. So we'll try that and make sure that everything is running correctly before we move on. So we're going to hit play, and there's my character. I immediately have control. Okay, I can run around. We'll escape. We'll try it again, see if we get a new spot. We got a different spot maybe. We'll just keep 2 or 3 times. Maybe we might have picked the same one there. We'll get one up on the hill here in just a minute. We won't spawn in the same exact spot every time. There we go. So it is picking a different one. at different times, so our character is able to move around, and so that is working the way we intend it to. Okay, so that will pretty much take care of that portion of it. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to create in our game mode a respawn system. So before we can respawn our character once our character loses all their health, and we don't want it to just quit, so we want to create a respawning system as long as we have lives. So let's go ahead and go back to our game mode, and we're going to create a custom event down here. So we're going to say custom. So we're going to add a custom event, and we're just going to call it respawn. Okay, so this will be our respawn. And what we want to do, and let's go ahead and do a couple things and make this a little more interesting. So when our character loses all their health, right now we'll do, and we may come up with a better solution later, but right now we're just going to do this. We're going to drag off of this, and we're going to say spawn emitter at location. Okay, so this will allow us to spawn a particle system, and I'm going to choose this little explosion one here, and I'm going to change the scale on this thing to 2, 2, 2, just to make it twice as big as normal. And what it needs is it needs a location. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to create a variable for this, and we'll set the variable over in the base character and where our character currently was when it died, and then it will use that location to spawn this emitter. Okay, so we're going to use, so we just drag back from here, and we're going to say promote to variable, and we'll just say player last location. Okay, so that'll be the location that it uses for this. Now we'll set that over here in the base character shortly. Okay, so then what we need to do is we need to check, after we spawn this, we need to check, and let me show you here in the base character. In the base character here, we are using this right here. So we're reducing our player lives by, and checking to see, is it greater than 0. Okay, so let's, if we do it this way, we do not. Okay, the way we're doing it there, if it works, we will respawn, but let's do it this way over here, and we'll change the process over there, because this is actually going to be a better way to do it. So we're going to add the branch here. Okay, so we're going to add our branch here, and we're going to get our game instance. You know what, let's do it this way to save ourselves a lot of time and effort. We got our game instance here, we've already casting, so now I've got a few extra nodes that I don't want here. Okay, so what I can do, once I select them like that and I have nodes that I don't want to copy, I can hold control and just mouse, left click and mouse back over them. Those will deselect those. So we're going to say control C in here in our base character function. Then I'm going to jump back over here to my RPG game mode, and I'm going to press control V. Okay, so what that'll do is that will just paste this back over here for me. Okay, now we're going to make one change in this. Okay, so what I want to do is I just want to check this over here when I decide to respawn instead of where I checked it before. Okay, so I'm going to, we don't want these execution pins here, so what I want to do is right click here, and I'm going to convert this to a pure cast, which will take away the execution pins. So I'm going to stack this up a little bit to make it a little easier to read. Okay, I'm going to take the player lives here and this one here and just kind of stack them together. Okay, that'll make save a little bit of room. Just make sure that all your wires are connected before you do this. So then we're going to take this into our condition. So if our player lives is greater than 0, then we can move forward. But if this is false, then we will, right now, quit the game. So once we run out of lives, we'll quit the game. Okay? So, but if it is true, so if this is true, what we want to do is we want to do a delay, and we'll delay about 2 seconds. Okay, so we don't want this to be an immediate thing. And then what we want to do is we're going to say get all actors of class. Okay, so we'll say get all actors of class, and we're going to say the base character. Okay, then from there we're going to do, and this should only run once, but we're going to do it this way just to make sure. We're going to say for each. So we're going to have a for each loop. So for each of these actors, which should only be one of them, we're going to do drag off of our array element, say and okay, so what we need to do off our loop body, we want to do destroy actor. Okay, so we want to destroy our base character out of the game, and then what we'll do is once that's complete is we'll just run our function possess selected character. So that will go back and respawn it in a location and go ahead and take possession of it again and restart. So that's pretty much all we need to do for this particular respawning system. So we'll go ahead and compile that so that we can access it from our base character and jump over here to your base character. And what we'll do here is over in this section right here, we're going to take this part out. Since we're doing this in our respawning system, we're going to take this part out. So we're just going to click that right there. And so now we're going to run our reduce player lives function here. Okay, and we'll take this branch out and the quit game out. Okay, so what we'll need to do here is after we reduce our player lives, we're going to do a sequence node. All right, so we'll do a sequence. So the first thing we want to do in our sequence is once we reduce our player lives, is we want to get our player controller here, and then we want to stop our movement, because even though we're so we want to stop movement. Nope, that's my mistake, not that, character movement. So we'll drag this out. So then we'll go and run this function, stop movement immediately. Okay. So you get this here from your components up here. So stop movement immediately, and then we're going to say set hidden, actor hidden in game. Okay, and we'll say new hidden, and this will be itself. Okay. So we want to stop our character from moving, and then we want to hide it because in our respawn system we're going to and one final thing we need to do is this. We want to set hidden in game, and then we're going to get game mode. Okay, so we're going to get our game mode. We're going to cast to our game mode. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull off of here and we're going to say set let's see, oh my bad, wrong game mode. We're going to cast to RPG game mode. So we got to cast to the correct game modes before we can get access. Okay, so then we're going to go here and we're going to say set let's compile that. What do we call our variable? Player last location, that's what it is. Okay, so we're going to set player last location. And to do that, we're going to say get actor location. So this will be our character's location. We'll go ahead and set that up. And then the last thing we'll do here is respawn. Okay. So we'll respawn after all this. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. So kind of a lengthy function. So let's see if all this works correctly the way we intend for it to. So we'll hit compile save, and if so, we will end this video at this point. So we'll go ahead and press play. And we'll press F11 to go full screen, so it's a little easier to see. So we're running here. We'll take some health down. So I'm running here, and what should happen when I run out of health is we should have an explosion, a little laggy there, and sure enough, there it is. So let's go back to this, and let's try that again. So we should have our character disappeared, got the explosion, we have, this should be our last life, and sure enough, game quit. So that's what we intended to happen. So make sure you have all that stuff, check it out, make sure that everything works properly, and that'll be all for this video, and we'll see you in the next one. We'll start setting up our user interface and actually visually showing some of these things.